Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into the story of a woman from the 20th century whose popular novels she claimed weren't fiction at all. They were memories from her past lives.
So, picture this. It's Scotland, 1936. A young woman named Joan Grant is holding an ancient Egyptian scarab. And all of a sudden, she starts to dictate a story. But here's the thing. She isn't making it up. She's remembering it, with a kind of vivid detail that seems almost impossible.
And that, right there, is the huge mystery at the heart of her life. So, how do we solve it? Well, we have to go back. We have to follow the clues to their source, a truly extraordinary and frankly, very peculiar childhood. Yeah, Joan's upbringing was, let's just say, anything but conventional. And it really all began with her mother, who had this uncanny and sometimes pretty startling ability for just knowing things.
And we're not talking about just good intuition. Her mother famously predicted the sinking of the Titanic days before it even happened, crying out that she could see hundreds of people in the icy water. In another incident, she cleared a room of workers just minutes before a massive glass roof came crashing down. So you have to understand, for Joan, growing up in a world where psychic stuff happened was just normal.
And Joan had her own strange experiences too. She would get these intense flashes of other lives. She'd remember, the feeling of being a powerful Greek athlete, and then burst into tears, completely frustrated that her small girl's body couldn't run as fast as she remembered she could. Can you imagine?
Now, growing up like this gave Joan a really deep-seated need to test things for herself, to figure out what was real. So when her nurse told her that old story, that liars get struck by lightning, she didn't just believe it.
Nope. During the very next thunderstorm, she decided she was going to put that theory to the test in the most direct way possible.
She wasn't struck, and her takeaway from this was simple, but it was absolutely profound. She had to experience things for herself to know if they were true. And that one principle would basically guide her whole life, both her inner and outer worlds. And her dependence on that powerful inner life was only going to get stronger, forged in the absolute trauma of World War I.
This created just a wild contrast in her life. During the day, she's this high society English girl, expected to go to dances and find a husband. But at night, her dreams threw her right into the trenches, into the absolute horror of the front lines.
And listen, these weren't vague, fuzzy dreams. They were terrifyingly real, visceral experiences. And to her, they felt more real and way more important than her waking life of parties and social events.
Life then took another massive turn. A period of really intense, all-consuming love was followed by a devastating loss. But it was this exact path that ultimately led her to a place where her strange abilities weren't just tolerated, they were finally accepted.
I mean, look at this. In a single year, her entire world got turned upside down. She meets Esmond, a man she was convinced she'd known in her dreams for over a year. And then, just 32 days later, he's killed in an accident. Completely heartbroken, she ends up taking refuge at a place called Hurtwood, run by a woman named Daisy. And with Daisy, she found this incredible, non-judgmental acceptance. At Hurtwood, after basically a lifetime of people thinking she was strange or a liar, Joan was finally in a place where she felt safe enough to explore her abilities without any fear.
Which brings us right back to where we started our story, in 1936. Only now, we actually have the keys to unlock the mystery of how she did what she did.
This was the year. All those different threads of her life, the psychic upbringing, the strange personal memories, the trauma from the war dreams, and that deep acceptance she finally found at Hurtwood, it all came together.
So her creative process, it wasn't really imagination as we think of it. She always insisted it was like taking dictation. It was a direct recollection from a source she believed was our own deeper memory. And that scarab was simply the key that unlocked it.
She even came up with a name for this ability, far memory, and it became the foundation for 7 different novels, each one a life she claimed she had actually lived, in places like ancient Egypt, Rome, and even pre-Columbian America.
I love this metaphor she used to explain it. She said that she, Joan, and Sekeeta, the Pharaoh from her first book, were like 2 beads on the same necklace. Each bead is a distinct individual, but they're all linked by a single, continuous thread of consciousness. And that thread, that's the string of far memory.
So what are we to make of this? Was she a gifted novelist who was tapping into some kind of collective unconscious? A A genuine mystic with a real connection to the past? Or something else entirely? Whatever you believe, Joan Grant's story really forces us to ask some huge questions about memory, about identity, and about where the stories we tell ourselves really, truly come from.